Currently, my site has two divs stacked on top of each other, the navigation menu and the main content. The main content has this beige background color, and my navigation menu doesn't have any background color defined, so it's actually inheriting that color from the body background, which is we didn't do anything to it, so it's just white. Actually, it's not that we didn't do anything to it. Our Yahoo reset is actually defining this as a white background, which is fine. So before we even actually implement this tab navigation background over here for these elements, I want to quickly explain what or how this is accomplished. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I need, since these things are of variable length, meaning that home and contact are two different sizes, I am going to define a fixed width for each one of these elements, for each list item inside of the navigation menu. That way what it's going to do, it's going to make these consistent. It's going to put these invisible blocks next to them. Right now, I think all we have set up is a margin of 1 EM to the right, which makes them, no matter what size they are, just push over the next thing to the right. That's okay. I mean, if it depends what we were going to do, that's fine, but we're going to have to end up taking that off. We're going to define a width for these things. Then we're going to set a background picture for each element. And I've created this background picture, and it's actually right here. Now, what I'm going to do is define, so I kind of have to have a game plan before I even start making graphics and all that stuff. So what I did is I figured what would be an ideal width for each one of my navigation elements to make them consistent. I don't want them variable. I want to make them all the same size. So I looked at contact, which is my longest word, and I used the Measure It plugin in Firefox to kind of get an idea about how big I wanted the box to be. And now I'm measuring something I already did, but what I did is I defined the width of each one of those elements to 60 pixels. You see, each one of the 60 pixel width over here fits perfectly over each box. And then with that, I created a graphic that actually had both of these colors in the same graphic, and that graphic is exactly 120 pixels wide. And the reason, you would almost think that you could put two different graphics in there. You could have two different graphic files. You'd have one for the on state and one for the, you'd have at least one, not on and off state, but you'd at least have one that's defining that this is the page you're on, and the other one says it's a little bit darker, that it's not, and you have two different elements. This is a small file anyway, but your page will load faster if you put these types of elements all in one graphic file as opposed to two. Now this is a very basic example of this. Some people could have actually all the graphic elements in this one huge file, and they, depending on how they position the background, is going to be what it's going to look like. Now these tabs are actually have, if you think that if this is 50 pixels wide, I'm just going to do this just try to illustrate this by moving this box around. So if this graphic is 60 pixels wide, and you set the background image, well, imagine this is the 120, and you set this to only be 60 pixels wide. It's gonna, look at this, it's gonna cut that off completely, like so. So you're only gonna see that lighter tabbed image. So that's what it's gonna be by just defining that as the background. Now if you give it a negative value, maybe like a negative 60 background positioning, that's going to take the whole element and push it over this way. So it's going to, so you have 120 pixels wide, then you pull it back 60 pixels, it's going to look something like that. That's essentially the way you do that. Image sprites is what they call it. I mean, again, this is a very simple example of it, which is a great place to start because a lot of people have huge files that have tons of icons and everything on there, and they're positioning not only on the vertical not only on the horizontal but the vertical as well.